Right, so we are. Hang on a minute. All right then, hello and welcome back to the shenanigans of me in the garage with this flipping wiring loom. As you can see, the DJI mic is back. That is because you probably might notice that I've actually got a new camera. It's got sick to death of using the old GoPro, so I've now upgraded to the new DJI Action 6. So I thought, you know what, I got a bit of a little code from work, so I've used that as towards a bit of discount, and I've used it towards getting a new camera because I was so close to throwing that old camera at a brick wall and then I would have been absolutely nowhere. So yes, without further ado, let's get back to this wiring loom and see what we can get. But first, see that box there? I've had a bit of a delivery, so let me open this up and show you. So inside here, as you'll notice, there's a few goodies. So don't need that bit just yet, but all of these here, you will notice that these are in fact my new coil packs. So these are in fact, they are 35 from the R35 GTR. These are the coil packs from one of those. I don't think they're from A35, but they are R35. You know what I mean. You know what, you can see where I'm going. But anyway, so yes, I've purchased those. They come with the adapter bracket that goes on top of the engine there, underneath the original coil pack cover. They also come with a loom, so each one can be wired in, which is good because I didn't actually know what was going to come as part of the kit. So it seems pretty self-explanatory here. There's a 6-wire, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 wires there. So they'll be for each individual coil, and then there's going to be some lives, and I'm presuming these browns here are going to be the earths. So they need wiring in to a switched live and a ground of some form, and then the others just get wired directly to the ECU ports. So it shouldn't be too tricky to do that part. I am still waiting on some other wire to turn up so that I can redo all the wires for the cam sensors and the crank sensor, and what else was it? I can't remember. But yeah, there's a few wires there to go in. So knock, that was it, the knock sensors. Honestly, my head's cabbaged. So yes, so that's currently where I'm up to. So let's get this box out of the way, get a few things shifted, and then we can go from there. And the other items were these. So these are the coolant hoses. So these are a flexible hose, so you can pretty much bend them almost to past 90 degrees and they don't kink. So they are for the heater matrix hose, so at the back of the engine block to the heater matrix piping and all that lot. Just makes my life a lot easier. Because I've gone single turbo, got rid of a load of other gubbins, you can put these in place of the original coolant hoses, which is just a faff. So it makes my life a lot easier. They come with all hardware as well, which is nice. So yeah, that's about it really. So let's get to this wiring. And I also forgot I ordered this. So this is a little adapter basically that goes into the power steering pump so that I can run, I think that looking at that, I think that's an AN10. Yeah, I think that's an AN10 fitting. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. So that I can run a braided line to the reservoir bottle for the power steering fluid. Mainly because I'm going for a tidied engine bay, so I want a few things out of the way. So the power steering reservoir is literally, as you're looking at the engine, it's on the right hand side, and it's just like, hey, look at me, I'm ugly. So Nick, you'll be there fucking commenting on that one, no doubt. But yes, so I've got that to go in as well, so at least I can get a few things tucked away, tidied out, and it just makes that engine bay look just that little bit nicer. So right, we will get back to this wiring. So the first things that I wanted to do was the fact that this injector, number one, is in a separate teed off loom to the rest of the injector ports, which is mainly this lot. I need to backtrack all of that through here and get it coming out of this branch. So not really very exciting, but that's what I want to do first, and then at least that is a start. So I've just pulled that all the way back through all this rat's nest of wires here. That can now be placed onto that column there, and they can just be tie wrapped together, so I know that that is predominantly the injector row, so I know what's what there. So I'll just get a tie wrap and we'll do that. So instead of using my phone screen and looking at a pin readout to then go to another tab to look at a pin readout for something else, a good friend of mine has printed these off for us. So I've got the standard ECU pinout and the new Link G4X, I think it is mine. Does that say G4? Yeah. So I've got the ECU pinouts for this, and so I can just cross-reference side by side. So it makes my life a lot easier. I did have the standard one here, but obviously this is on an A5 sheet of paper. So with it being on an A4, it just makes my life a lot easier, basically. So I'm going to get those out of the bags, and then we can start cross-referencing a few wires and just go from there, basically, and see how we get on. And there you go. So I've got the original J-spec pinouts for the GTE engine and the Lynx pinouts. So all of this should be pretty much the same, because this should be a plug and play loom, but it's just the fact that I want to be taking a few bits out of this loom. So I just want to make sure that anything that I do remove from here isn't listed in here as something that is required for the engine to run, basically. So yeah, this is the boring bit. So not much not much in the way of video content, unfortunately, but hopefully once I've got all this nailed down, there'll be some more exciting stuff going on with the car. So just got to sort of stick with me, please. So my first thing to do is my knock sensors, because they are, in terms of the sensors, one of the easiest to do. So let me sort some shite out of there. So what I didn't know is, in fact, that the knock sensor wiring, so this here, I just thought, because obviously I'm new to all this, I'm not very tech savvy when it comes to electric stuff. So the new sensors are a 2-wire. The original one was just a 1. I think it was a 1-wire anyway. Yeah, there's only one cable there, but it's got a braid around it, so obviously for the shielding, and that terminates to the ECU and then goes off to some ground somewhere. But the new sensors apparently don't like to be grounded to chassis, because you get noise from other things. So I was like, well, there's 2 wires on there, so one's obviously the positive, one's going to be the negative, or the ground, or whatever. And I was like, but where's the shielding ground on these? Does it need one? Does it not? So I asked ChatGPT, and it fobbed me with some answer, and I was like, I don't quite know that I trust that. So what I ended up doing was I stripped the end of this wire back just to have a double check. Not this one, I did it on the other one. And the black wire is actually grounded to the shield, so the ground and the shield ground are the same ground. So I now know that the positive for the signal wire goes to the corresponding points on here. I think 50 and 49. So 49 is there, says knock 2, and 50 up here says knock 1. So the white wires go to these, and then the black wires go to whichever, I've not figured that out yet, but whichever signal ground that it needs to go to. So it's just two connectors. So I'll find those in the original loom, I'll make a little cut, and then I'll solder those wires too, because I don't have the crimps to put into the ECU plug itself. So I'm just going to use the original wires, keep them as short as possible, and solder them to said ports. So we'll get to that, and then we sort of know where we're going then. So I found the associated knock points. So it's the one that I've got my probe in now, and this one next to it, so 49 and 50. So I couldn't remember which one of these was the front of the engine knock sensor, so I've just put the probe in there, I've got my knock R, which is obviously rear of the engine block, closest to you as you're sat in the car, or furthest away from you if you're looking at it from the bonnet side. And I've got this one here, which is the knock front. So if I find my probe here, get the continuity going and just put that on there, you can hear the beep. So I know that knock front is in fact this point, which is 0.50. So B50, knock 1. So there we go. It's as easy as that once you sort of get into a few bits of it, because these are the simpler parts. It's one of the rest of stuff I don't know. It's when it goes into a relay and then it does something and comes out somewhere else, I'm like, what? That's just wizardry to me. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to crack on with that, get these bits crimped, wired into place, and then we're just going to take it step by step, so watch this space. So I've depinned the original knock sensor from the plug. That one was dead easy, and the earth, which goes to the shielding of the original, is into this connector block here. Now the little release pins in there are pretty straightforward. I've got a really slim screwdriver that I just put down there to release the little clip that holds things in place, but also it wouldn't come out, and I've had to pop up, see this little plastic sort of cover on there, I've had to pop that up so it just comes out. Probably pops up by about 1 millimetre, probably not even that, but it's just like an extra feature that I needed to pull out in order to get the crimp out of there, which was something I didn't know about. So, but I've discovered that now, so at least I know for the next ones when I come to do those that it's relatively simple. I also have my little key there which I put down the inside, which also helps if the screwdriver's a bit too big. But yeah, so that is that knock sensor all disconnected now, so it's just a case of backtracking it through the loom and removing it to whichever point it went to. But before I do that, I'm going to get the new sensor wiring laid into place so I know that I've got everything long enough, because the last thing I want to do is put a wire in that's going to be too short. So I'll get that laid down into place now, and then I'll do the other one as well, and I've got both sensors in the same spot, so it'd just be a case of wiring both in at the same time. So as you can see, I've got me knock end at this one, so it's all the way down here, follows the loom through, and as you can see I'm actually going to have quite a lot of excess cable there, but I'm not going to cut it because this black cable is actually crimped to the shielding in there. So just to save me a faff of a load of extra wiring that I don't want to do, I'm just going to wire it into place, and then all of this will just get bundled up in the footwell with the ECU, so at least it'll all still be in the same place. Just saves extra work for myself, especially when it's something that I'm not 100% happy with, because I don't like wiring, as I've said many times in this video. So yes, so at least that one's done. I'm just going to get the second wire just laid into place, and then the grounds for those can go together, and then just do the separate signal wires to said points on that ECU plug. Right, so what I've got here is this is the old knock sensor wire with the crimp on the end. So this crimp is designed for the standard ECU plug there. So the wire, which is the white wire, which I now need to go into there, I don't have crimps for this. And to be honest, I would love new crimps, but I can't afford to just keep going through and buying stuff for this car. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the wire here, I'm going to cut about 2 inches off that, and then cut the end of there, and then basically solder that wire to the end of there, heat shrink it, make sure that's protected, and then I'm going to reuse this crimp into the plug. So that's the plan. So not really much to it other than just getting to it and going snip. So there we go. So that's knock number 1. Just need to get the wire strippers out now, get this stripped, that one stripped, bit of heat shrink over it first, and then solder them together, heat shrink it, and then that's done. Nearly knocked my camera over then. Alright, so we need like octopus arms. So a bit of flux on this. That's one tinned up. I need some heat shrink over there now. It's too long. So just trim that down. Excuse me, don't know where that came from. And then I'm going to tin that one. This soldering iron's not the best, but it'll do for what I need. That's that. And then I need to try. These are little things they don't show you in proper videos. Is the fact you've got to try and find a way of holding stuff. And if you don't have all the gear for that specific job, then you're not going to be going out and buying it all. So, something's really tickling my throat today. Will that hold there? So there's that on there. There's that. A little bit of fresh solder. And then that soldered to that. Not happy with that. Let's undo it. Do it again. There we go. So that's that soldered, and then heat shrink over it. If it'll go, there we go. Let's let me get my lighter, which I dropped on the floor just a minute ago. There we go. And then give that a lick of heat, and there we go. So that there is one of the crimps complete. So that end now can go straight back into the ECU plug. I'm not going to do this end just yet because this is going to be a shared ground across a few of the sensors. So I don't want to terminate the end of that yet, just into plug. But yeah, so once I've figured out what the other sensors are and which ones need earthing, they don't need earthing together, but they all need to go to the ECU's ground, if you know what I mean, so that there's no other false signals coming from other items within the engine base. If you do ground earth, apparently these sensors don't like it, or the ECU doesn't like it. It gets mixed signals or something. So I'll just do as the instructions say, and then we can't go wrong, can we? So I've got the other wire to do now, so I'm going to take out the other knock sensor wire, and I'm going to use the crimp again off the end of that, wire it onto the end of the other wire, but you've just seen me do one, so there's no point in showing you another. So I've got the ends made up now, as you saw in that last little clip. So the earthing ends, the black wire there that you can see, I'm going to tie them together, and they are both going to be going to point B7. So on the plug here, so you've got plug B, 0.7, so that's 1, 2, 3, fourth connection in on the B plug basically. So as you're looking at this, you are looking from the back side, but in fact this plug is that way up, so which makes things even more complicated. So the way I found that out was B50 and B49 were the two knock sensors that I took out. So obviously they're third row down and across. So from here being the row that took them out. Anyway, what it is it's that pink one. I don't quite know where I was going with that there, but just trying to figure things out in my head and put it into words. So yeah, but we're getting there. I'm slowly figuring this stuff out, so I'm just going to get on with that now, and then get them terminated to that point B7, and then I know that the knock sensors are done, and then the next thing is the next sensor, and the next sensor. We just work our way through it that way, and then at least I know I'm heading in the right direction, basically. So actually, in that last little clip there, I got the thingy wrong. It's not this pink wire. I read that the drawing wrong. So it's actually underneath here. So you see the brown wire, the orange wire, and the blue wire. So they are currently the signal grounds from the crank position sensor and both the cam position sensors. So the new knock sensors are also going to get earthed to those terminals. Although they are separately terminated there in the block, they actually run to this part here where they are all in contact with each other. So let me just unwrap that, show you. So as you can see, there's a crimp there holding it all together. So all of the sensors are earthed together. So where that splice is underneath there, I'm just going to peel off that little crimp and then solder everything into that position. So that's where my new grounds for the knock sensors are going to go to. So I'll do that, and then it's done, it's out of the way. And then I've got some other bits and pieces I need to do, so bear with me. Right, so that is my knock sensors all now wired into the harness. So I've got from the original points, they're all now all soldered up, crimped in and pushed into the connector block. The ground wires are all linked into the original sensor wiring, so the other wires here are for the cam position sensor 1 and 2 and the crank position sensor, so they're all earthed now to the same signal ground. So that's that bit done. All I need to do now is just wrap that up with a bit of electrical tape. I hate electrical tape, but for what I need it for here, it's just getting it so that nothing else is going to touch those potentially sort of live wires, if you're not exposed wires I should say. So yeah, I get that wrapped up, and then the next thing I need to do is sort out the wiring in terms of the injectors and the coil pack connectors. So looking at this, move that out of the way now, this is injector 1. So as you can see, the injectors use a different plug over the standard plugs. So these plugs are obviously the standard. I was thinking I'll just reuse these wires because they seem alright, but when you get down inside here, you can't really see it on the camera, but in there, the red and blue wire, it's just where it goes into the plug there, it's actually broken. So because these wires are so old, they've lost the flexibility and they just crack. So ideally I'm going to have to order some new wire, and then I can run a dedicated live to each injector and then run the return cable, which will be the signal wire, which is the ground wire, to the ECU to tell them to fire, because I think they run off a permanent live, and then the earth to say make a connection, if you know what I mean. So yeah, so I need to order some new wire. So yeah, I've ordered some other bits of wire, but not enough wire for doing 6 lots of those. So yeah, but like I say, you can tell I'm thinking all the time here. So let's just crack on with what I can do. So I'll get that tape put around those connector bits now, and then I'll just see where I can go from here. So the next thing I was going to do is the coil pack connectors. So obviously on this end here there are 6 wires, 1 for each coil pack basically. So because these are the R35 coils, excuse me, I'm just wrestling with wires. I hate wires, they're fucking annoying. Anything, wires, hoses, bloody anything that can get tangled up, will get tangled up. So yes, so the coil packs here. So you've got the 6 associated plugs, you've got the lives and the earths. Now these use their own sort of switched live and a good earth, you know what I mean. But you can use the original switched live basically. So on here, this grey plug, I have established that these two orange wires here, one orange wire feeds the injectors predominantly, and the other orange wire comes all the way around here, feeds off to the ignition coils, which are on this row, and also down to here, which is the coil pack igniter basically. So all of that lot, wiring wise, can pretty much go for the ignition coils, but for the time being I'm just going to get the coils wired in to the ECU, get the loom laid in place, and then I'm going to find a dedicated live, which is going to be the live from that plug, and also a dedicated earth, which is probably just going to be to a good ground, which is already like in the cable, which is here, so I'll probably just be running those. But yeah, we're making progress. Like I said, I don't do wiring, but we're slowly getting there. It just fucking takes me a long time, this. Right, so since that last little clip, it's been a couple of days. As you can see, I've had a nice shave. Well, not a shave, just a trim. But anyway, yeah, since that last little clip, I've had a bit of a delivery. Now, I ordered some wire, although when I ordered it, I thought I'd ordered red with the corresponding trigger lines in it to make life my bit easier and continue with the same colour as what's already there, but they just sent us solid coloured wires. Not the end of the world, I can still use it, but it might get a bit confusing when it comes to the coil pack loom as well, because that's just solid colours also, and a couple of the colours that are on there are very close to the colours on the wires that I've got for my injectors. So I just need to make sure that when I wire them up, I get them all labelled. So I've ordered myself some, this is like white heat shrink, so you can actually write on this and then heat shrink it down, and it keeps it basically shrinks the text at the same time. So I'm going to be using that to write like injector 1 on it, and then I know when it's on the ECU side here what it's for, as opposed to trying to chase wires and figure out stuff out later on. So yeah, so about time now I just get on with this and get all these injectors wired in, because all the old wiring's cracked and broken, as you remember. So that is the plan: get these wires replaced, get the crimps taken out, and just replace old wiring with new wiring basically. So yeah, not really much to tell you other than that, so let's just get to it. So this is the heat shrink that I was on about. So I've written on there injector number 6, because this is one that I'm doing first, closest on the ECU pin out, so I'm going to work in that way from 6 down to 1. So injector number 6, I've terminated the ends, soldered them together. Quite tricky for camera to pick up there, I think. So I'm just going to slide that over there now and get that heat shrunk down once I've soldered it to the corresponding terminal. I put that there, can you see? Like that. So injector 6, give it a little squeeze, open it up, put that over wire, and I've also bought some, wherever I've put it, it was in a little box. Now I need to do a test on this really, but I bought myself a box of clear heat shrink to put over the top of the white heat shrink, just to protect it, and then the writing doesn't get rubbed off. Not that it's going to get rubbed off, but if it's in an engine bay and it's getting dirty and you're cleaning it and whatnot, you might wipe away the markings. So I bought some clear just to go over the top of everything, but I'm just going to go do a quick test on this stuff now and see how it performs as to whether I'm going to use it or not. It was only cheap, so I'm going to give that a quick test and see how we get on. Yeah, so the heat shrink that I have ordered seems to work alright. So I'm going to cut a length of this off first. That one. Slide that over my wire, and then injector number 6, to go on next. Make sure you move them out of the way of the heat because you don't want them to shrink before you put them on. And then get these soldered together. Hang that there. So some soldering iron. Make sure you got a good joint. I need a new soldering iron because this one's rubbish. I might redo that. I need some better solder as well. That's brand new solder, but I'm not convinced I like it. Wow, that's starting to get hot. So there we go, got a nice soldered joint on there. So next thing to do, move the injector 6 label down over that, because then that protects the joint, stops it being just a bare wire. Just use my little lighter, give it a quick flick over, and as you can see, injector 6 still stays visible. So yeah, and then what I'm going to do, put the clear then over the top of that, and then do the same thing and heat shrink that down into place. There you have it. One terminal complete. So now that is going to go direct to injector 6, and then this end will be made off to the plug at the injector side. This is not rocket science, you just got to sit down methodically, go through things and just make sure you're getting it right first time, because you don't want any misfires later on once you try and fire up the engine. So I'm just going to crack on now, do the other 6 of those wires, and then just take it from there basically. So this is exactly what I mean by fucking sit down, take your time. So that first wire I just showed you, being injector number 6, this here is a red wire, solid red wire. Now, one of the other injectors is a solid red wire from factory. So this one, being the end that is the red and black, I should have done with the black wire. So that crimp's now got to come off, get resoldered, reheat shrunk, everything, so that it just doesn't get confusing later on. So this one here, that's the solid red wire, so I need to redo it all to that one. Anyway, so now that's rectified, crack on with rest. And there we have it. So that's all my 6 wire ends made out now. So just to get these sort of placed into this loom, and then we can go from there basically. So that's took me probably just over half an hour, which is not too bad. But yes, now time to get these laid out into loom, and then we can sort of go from there. I'm going to put the entire loom back into the engine bay, put the inlet manifold back on, and then make out the ends for the actual injector ends, just to make sure that everything is the correct length. I don't just want to do it willy-nilly and completely cock it up. So yes, so there is light at the end of the tunnel, so I'm going to get the ends of these crimps put back in their terminated spots on the ECU plug, and then just sort of plod on. I might crack on and do the injector, not the injector, the coils in a minute as well. So this is now all of me injector wires put into place, so they're all nicely labelled up. So the next thing to do for me is to make out the ends for these ready for the coil packs. So the coils will be going into here. I already did the ends for the positive and for the earth, so they need their own whatever I can tie into on this loom. But I've also moved, or removed I should say, so let me just pop that down out of the way. So as you can see here, this is the live for the coils. So as you can see, there's only one live to start with, then it splits into 3, and then further down the line again it splits again to make up 6. It's the same with this. So this was the injector feed. As you can see, I've labelled it up. So you could, wherever the wire is, there's one wire comes from this grey plug through here, and when it gets to there, that then split into 3, and then it came around here and split into another 3. So there's only ever one wire, but it's just spliced and split off a couple of times. So I'm going to do the same now with the injector side of stuff, get all them sort of snipped, crimped and ready to rock and roll. So we'll just take it from there, one step at a time, and we shall get there eventually. So not a million miles off now. Once I've got these in, it's just a case then of laying it into the car and going from there really. So a bit boring, I'm not going to film this next bit because you've seen it already, there's just no point. So yeah, just crack on and I'll show you at the end. Alright, so I think this is about day 3. I still look the same, but I'm still dressed and ready to rock and roll on this loom. So in the last little clip there, I think I did all of the wiring for the injectors. So these just need snipping down to the correct length. But I'm going to do that once this loom is laid in the engine bay, and then I know exactly how long things need to be. So my next little task now is basically this branch of the wiring, which is for all the injector coils. So obviously I'm going new loom R35 coils, which is what this harness is for. So it's already pre-wired, apart from the end obviously. So that makes my life a little bit easier. So all I've got to do is find the corresponding ignition wires that are in the ECU plug here. So I've got my little ECU pinout, so I'm following them, and basically the colour of the wire that is on the clip here is not the colour of the wire that is currently there, because the coil pack connector, so this is the original spark generator, I think. I don't quite know how it works, obviously I'm not an electrician, I'm not quite clued up on this, but that goes into this plug. So all of these plugs and wires here are related to this thing. So as you can see, big plug goes to that one, black goes to there, and then the grey onto there. So this is all part of the ignition harness. So I figured out that the green wire that is to the coil is in this loom, which is this green line near my thumb, but the actual trigger wire from the ECU is the, I think it was this blue and orange striped wire here. So eventually all this will be going, but until I get that engine up and running, I don't want to cut anything out. So I'm just going to get these wired into the actual trigger wires, because this thing has got its own dedicated live and earth, so this sort of like makes my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to get these terminated now, put into the corresponding spots on that plug, and then we're pretty much good to go. So yeah, this taken me, I'm not joking, a lot of thinking, because I'm dyslexic, so numbers and all that sort of stuff don't correlate in my brain properly. And I'm not a big fan of wiring, and it's sort of like a little bit on my sort of dyslexic ability as well, so I struggle with stuff like this. Mechanic stuff, fine, electrics and numbers and all that sort of stuff, I struggle a bit. So I'm going to get these sorted now, and then hopefully we're that one step closer to getting this loom put back in and sort of figured out with regards to what we need to do next. So yeah, I'm going to get these done, and I'll show you in a minute. So the way in which this loom is going to work, basically this one, you can either have the coils coming out the front of the engine into what is like, I'll show you on the car, it's easier. So basically on the engine you've got cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as it goes back. The original harness came up over this way because it goes off down to the alternator and stuff down there. But obviously the original coils then feed wires going up this way, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed my coils so that the wire goes out the back there and is actually closer and more direct, and then there's less to try and tidy up around here. So that's the plan. So obviously with this being port number 1, the end of that loom, the first plug that you come to, is going to be my ignition coil number 1. So whatever I do sort of with the wiring, I just need to make sure that I'm following the same logic in my head without walking into that door. So let's go to it. So on here, ignition number 1 is currently at point B57. So when you turn over the ECU pin out here, so pin 57, which is, I said 57, didn't I? See, this is what I mean. B57 to B, plug B 57, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4th in on the second row up, so it's actually this way. So 57, 4th wire in, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's actually showing it as being that red and white. So I'll just trace that back now, make sure it is the correct wire, and then we'll just make a start from there. Right, so there we go, that is all 6 of the injectors now wired in, but I have realised I've done one error, and that was not putting this loom through that rubber grommet first. So I've now got to unpin all of these, feed it back through there, and then put them back into that plug. Like I said, I always forget something, so just make sure you triple check and double check, whatever you want to do. But yes, let's get that put in now, and it's nearly there. So the standard coil wires that were originally wired into the ECU came through the loom down to this plug, if you remember. So I've traced the plugs, the wires out to the plug, and then the corresponding plug wire, out to the connectors for the coils. So that part of the wiring loom now is redundant, but I've wired everything up just in case. So now all I need to do is get the corresponding plugs here that were for the standard coils and just sort of remove the power feeds for them back to a splice point that feeds off to the last point, because I don't want to cut out some power for something else. So basically just find the last place in which they were spliced in and then remove them from there. So that's my next task. So as you can see on here, 4 wires are currently into 1, and there's another 2 because obviously 6 cylinders, and these 2 here splice into this part, and then obviously that wire then I need to find out where its next splice point is, which I think is around about here somewhere, but I'll dig all that lot out, and then obviously I'll get chopping these out of the way. So we are getting there, but it just takes time. So not far off. There it is. So that's the last pre-terminated crimp. So everything comes from 1 wire, splits into 3, goes down here again, splits into another 2, and then into 4. So this is the last known point of all of the spliced points in from there. So I'll find out which one of these 3 wires it is, and then I'll just remove it from this harness and pull out all of the dead wires basically. So as you can see, all of those 6 connector plugs just get spliced together and spliced together and spliced together all the way down just till it's a single wire. So all of them now are done with, because they're going on a new circuit for the new coils, for the R35 coils. I know it took me a while to get going on this, but now I'm going on it. I'm getting a lot more confident in knowing what I'm doing. So yeah, next. So now that that part of the coil clips is all done, the next thing I need to do is address this, because this part here is for the Clifford alarm. Now the current immobilization for the alarm is attached to this black and yellow wire here, so it goes off through the alarm and back out again, if you know what I mean, to create a circuit. This black and yellow wire is for the map sensor. Now apparently the map sensors can be quite sensitive and not like interference in them, So with that then being switched between the Clifford alarm, it's going through the alarm system to come back out, so it's going to get a mixed signal going on in that line. So I need to reconnect that wire so that it's just a dedicated feed directly to the ECU, and then pick another point on the ECU in which something that can kill the engine. So it'll probably be the fuel pump. So if I can switch the fuel pump line off by the Clifford alarm, I'll do that instead of running it through the map sensor. So I'm going to get this wire reconnected back together, and then I'm going to figure out which wire I can use to kill the pump. And the joy of that is the fact that the male and the female on the crimps to the Clifford can just be reused to relink that wire back together, so there's no soldering needed to be done there. So yeah, the crimps are soldered, by the way, they're not just a dry crimp, so they're a nice solid joint that. So yeah, now I need to figure out with these two wires what point on the ECU I can kill. So I need to try and find out now on this list here which one is the fuel pump feed. So we'll go from there. So this here purple and white wire feeds off up this loom, comes down here to this grey plug and feeds, as you can see, it's this one, just where my thumb is, purple and white. So this goes inside underneath the dashboard basically. So I'm pretty sure that the trigger wire for the fuel pump I've got at the minute is purple and white, so I'm just going to go and check that now outside. But as you can see, it's going flipping dark now, isn't it? So let's get this lit up and find out what's going on, because I'm pretty sure that I've already got, from when I was doing my new relays for my new fuel pumps, oh, there we go, down here, that one of these trigger wires, let me just hold that there, the trigger wire for said relays is a purple and white wire, I'm sure it was. So I just need to get in there. I won't film this bit because it's just too awkward, and I'll let you know. Alright, so since last night I had a little bit of a think, and I'm not going to do that fuel pump like I said. Instead I'm going to use this one. So this here orange and black wire, this is a switched live, which basically, as soon as you put the key in the ignition, sends a feed down here to the ECU to turn the ECU on. So I might as well use that, and then it immobilises the ECU until your immobiliser's clicked, and then I'm also going to use this switched live to fire the new relays for the R35 coils basically. So it makes sense, it's a little bit of an easier wire to do. I don't need to try and trace anything, I just know it's a switched live. So I'm going to get that cut out and spliced basically to match the original bullet connectors that are on the, to basically down to the wires here, to the not to the ECU, to the immobiliser. So I've got myself some bullet crimps there, which I've had a kit here for years, so just going to dug them out the bottom of a box. So yeah, going to go get these wires cut now and get these crimped on, and then that side of things is pretty much done. I just need to put a splice in it for a wire, which is going to be a trigger wire for the relays basically, because I'm running two new relays. One for the R35 coils, and the other one is a new live feed basically for my injectors. So I'm not using the original system for that, so just got their own dedicated feed then. It makes things a lot more, just a bit simpler. So I've just nicked some of the wire off of the old injectors so it sticks with the black and orange theme. So the black and orange from the ECU trigger wire to all the other inputs and that, it just makes my life a bit easier, and then I know what's what. So that's what I'm going to use. Hopefully this is long enough. So we'll just have to see later, won't we, when it don't fit. Right, so that's that done. So splice this wire in, so that is now connected across the, basically across the immobiliser. That's going to be my new trigger feed wire up to my relays, and I've noticed that there's one of these really naff, horrible connector blocks on this wire. So what I'm going to do is just cut that off, splice the wire back together, and make sure that's a nice solid contact, because I hate these things with a passion. Whoever designed them, great idea, but they're just shit. But I hate them. Right, so that now is as far as I can go with this loom. So all of that end's sorted, all of the trigger for the alarm is sorted. Until I know exactly what I can remove out of this loom, which will be when the engine is running. If it's not running, then there's something in that loom that is needed, if you know what I mean. So in terms of that, I'm just going to leave it as is. Going to install it into the engine bay basically, and then we'll get the engine running. And then obviously once the engine's running, I can then decide what of those wires I can just chop out, because obviously they will be clearly not needed. So I have off camera started my relays wiring for the ignition coils and for the injectors. So I'm now going to get this main loom here installed into the engine bay, and then I know then where I can splice into a loom to take the power from for those relays. So, because obviously the battery is now going in the boot, so I need to figure out where the wire for that is going to come back into the engine bay for the starter motor, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, all this stuff, it just takes forever. It's a proper head fuck for me. So yeah, so I'm going to leave the video here for now, and yeah, it's not really been a very informative one, this one. But like I said at the start of the video, wiring for me is like kryptonite to Superman. I just hate it. So yeah, so from there I'm going to leave it now, and hopefully the next video, all the wiring will be in the engine bay, the coils will be on the engine and all that sort of stuff. I'll get all that lot sorted, and we'll take it from there. So yeah, hopefully a bit more progress coming in the next few videos, because all this boring stuff with the wires should be done by then. And we'll start getting some more exciting stuff going into that engine bay. So yeah, watch this space, and I'll see you soon.